What is art? Welcome to Philosopher's Corner. I'm John. What is art? It's a question that's been asked since the dawn of time. The standard definition for art is that it's a product of the conscious imagination, intended to be appreciated for its beauty. Standard definitions also involve the nature of classifications of the different genres of art, and saying that some skills in life can be so perfected that they rise to the level of being called art. So we're here for the philosophical question of it, an inquiry into art itself. So up front, I'm going to start with, I think art is any conscious expression. So that's a pretty broad definition of art, like a conscious expression. Now, that covers pretty much anything that a person can do consciously. And when I say consciously, I mean, yes, there's a stage in the process where you're aware of the communication, the expression that, in this case, the artist is attempting to make, or that they are making. So it's a state of mind in the form of communication, because to me, so we talked about languages, and language being any form of a system of communication. And to me, art is a language. Art is a system of communication. And the requirement to engage in that language is that the individual, in this case the artist, when they go into their process to express themselves, whatever the genre is, that they enter the state of mind of art. And that state of mind is that they are going to use their self and create an expression that has the intention to be viewed by other humans. Which, of course, brings up the philosophical question. Okay, so if somebody sits down and they decide to express themselves, but their intention is for it to not be seen, is that art? No. So if a person sits down and they write a diary, and their intention is for it to never be seen, it's just a personal diary, is it art? No. Can it be considered art? Of course. Can anything be considered anything if you wrap your mind around it long enough? Yes. But in that case where the person really doesn't want it to be, no. And in that case, if a person's sitting down to write a diary, knowing how life works, can they reasonably expect it to not be seen by other people? Of course, no. That's unreasonable, given the nature of life. But in terms of the state of mind to create art, to say on some level to yourself that this is going to be part of the language of art, that's a state of mind that can necessarily be entered into in order to make art. And it's really maybe the only requirement of art, is that the artist enters the state of mind and they are saying to themselves, this is an expression that I'm going to put into the world, and its intention is to be art, and art being simply an expression put out for the world to look into. And once they have done that, once they have made that state of mind, once they have engaged in the expression of their choice, then whatever comes out, to me, philosophically, is art. Art is not for something to be art, it has no requirement for skill. It has no requirement for genre. It has no requirement for likability, beauty, anything at all. It's simply the state of mind that a person has sat down and in that moment before they create the thing, at some point they have said to themselves, I intend for this to be in the language of art. I intend for this expression to last. I intend for this expression to be seen, to be interpreted, to be heard, to be felt, whatever it might be. And so when we have that idea, we can go back to the very beginnings of time, of human history at least, and we can see that the very earliest petroglyphs, fit this fit this definition of art. The very first people in caves who had some impulse, some instinct to mark the cave walls, it went beyond any sort of mindless wall markings. You can tell that their intention was for their expression to be seen by others, to communicate information, and to last, because they used different materials on the cave walls that exhibited intelligence in terms of the knowledge of wanting to make their expression last. And they've lasted till this day. And when you look at their particular circumstances, you know that required intelligence, that required intention, and it required skill. All of which point to the state of mind they were in when they decided to express these things. And in that state of mind, I think we can infer that their state of mind was to make an expression that went to other people and went beyond their circumstance in life. And in that very, very real way of a utility of communication of a type of language called art, it is art. It doesn't matter what it looks like. The aesthetics of art, I understand that, like, philosophically in the modern times or deeper in civilizations, art, the discussion of what is art tends to border on discussion of technique, discussion of aesthetics, discussion of meaning, discussion of intent, all these different things. I believe those are all worthwhile things to engage in order to accept art and to perceive it and dig into it and get to the meaning of it and absorb it fully. But in my opinion, once a conscious expression has been put out and an audience or another person, the not creator, anybody who's not the creator who encounters the art is the audience. So once the audience has encountered the art, any discussion that is catalyzed or provoked by the art has validated the fact that that thing is art. It doesn't matter what the nature of the discussion is. It doesn't matter what the nature of any of the activity that comes out of it is. Good or bad, however you want to define it, it absolutely does not matter. Once it has catalyzed conversation and debate and examination and inquiry, you for sure know it's art. That's just now you know it is. Now you're just, that's one of the chief objectives of art, is just to begin that discussion, to begin people coming together and talking things out or expressing to each other things about the thing that was expressed. So art. The integral part of art, creating art, is the artist entering into the state of mind at least once. They can just do it once and go, oh, okay, now whenever I do this, I'm making art. They enter into the state of mind that they're making a conscious creation for entry into the language of art. And they don't have to know that it's art as a language per se, like with the cave people making petroglyphs. A rose by any other name smells as sweet. They just knew they got into a conscious state if they wanted their expression to be seen by others and for it to last. Now, lasting doesn't have to be a part of it, but they just knew they wanted to express it and that they were consciously creating it in a way that it could be absorbed by others. They knew that. It's clear. And that, to me, that's the requirement for it to be art. And now, in the modern day, as we're dealing with all of the different things that have been loaded onto the word art, we sort of have to strip those things off and get back to its actual primal utility, which is as a form of communication and expression to others. Not merely aesthetic. Now, as far as the other parts of art, can people who are super skilled, can their activities rise to a level of art? Yes. Yes, it can. Now, I still believe that in order for that to occur, the person, let's say, it could be, a lot of times they'll say an athlete has become an artist, or, a cook has become an artist, or really anything, right? And I think that's fair if somebody has gotten to the top of they've perfected their craft in a different genre of life, a different occupation. But I do believe that in order to get there, they do have to enter, at some point, they do enter the conscious state of understanding that what they're doing is now being perceived as a conscious expression of their interaction with life. I do believe that that they do meet that definition of art. When people say, "Oh, that person's an artist now," like they see Wayne Gretzky or Michael Jordan or Gordon Ramsay or like whomever, and they go, "Oh, that person now, what they're doing has risen to the." It's so fill in the blank. They're superlatives. It's so brilliant. It's so graceful. It's so elegant. It's so, whatever it is, they're doing a thing. They're doing a thing so that resonates so much with particular principles that the audience resonates with so purely that at a point people start to say, oh, well, this is art. And but also that person who's performing it at some point had to have the thought that their actions were rising to a level that it was becoming their chief expression that they needed to last, their chief expression. It became their language. It became more than their occupation. It became more than the thing that they did. They became consciously aware that this was the thing that was going to express their interaction with life to the world and the thing that would last. And so that meeting point makes it art. It for sure makes it art. And it can be across anything. Now, in terms of the classification of art, whether people call it music or painting or sculpting or movie making or joke telling or orating or anything, it doesn't really matter. Now that we philosophically can kind of see that even what we would call a standard occupation can rise to the level of art. For instance, there's the famous documentary about Jiro Loves Sushi, and he's this famous sushi master in Japan, and he just became absolutely obsessed with perfecting the art of making sushi, and he did. And that vibration went out to the world of this man is an artist with sushi, and it worked. But typically, that's not an expression that one would typically associate with art or an art genre. There's no art genre that says, sushi chef. But when you watch a documentary and you see how he consciously expresses himself through every part of the process and what the results are and the effects are, and then a secondary and tertiary effect being the fact that the documentary was made about it. The documentary was only made because he had risen to the level of conscious expression that we call art. Now, whether or not other people, fully agree, they go, "Oh, well, that's not art. That's just a guy who makes sushi really well." That's because those people typically, they think that the modern version of the word art only applies. Oh, it's got to be in a frame, it's got to be a song, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. Philosophically, the man has risen to a conscious expression of his like a conscious imaginative expression that he's putting into the world. And he's doing it through sushi and through his actions. Right? So we have art as a more just expressive, a purely expressive means. We have art that can be reached through normal occupations and normal activities, but done to such a conscious and skilled degree that it becomes the expression the person is putting into the world. And then we have the categorizations as such, which categorizations come and go. Philosophically speaking, categorizations, they're perishable. Some remain, but many don't. And they're helpful for collating information in the mind, but they're not necessarily the end-all, be-all of particular subjects, as we found out. And as you'll find out as you think about things and keep track of things in your mind as life goes, you'll see things come and go, especially categorizations. So art, so these conscious expressions, you can reach it there in a variety of ways, and it has tremendous impact. Art, I mean, it's a different question, but what types of human expression, what types of creations have like the longest lasting impact in human culture, or what has like the largest impacts or whatever. Obviously that's an open-ended conversation / debate, but art is always in there, like the petroglyphs. I mean, let's look back, right? So we have thousands of year old caveman markings, paintings, figures. They actually are they're pretty good, decent, especially given for how long they've lasted. And you look back at that civilization and say, okay, so their art lasted. It lasted in the modern era, like the digital. They had no conception of this future. They had no conception of the wild amount of technology and just everything about this world. There was no way. I mean, one of them might have had like a prophetic dream or something, but there's just no reasonable way to assume that any of those people in that era had any conception of what this future was going to be. Yet, their artwork survived and informs us of their era more than maybe anything else. No, more than maybe their fossilized records, more than anything we could find out about them. It's just really some simple scrawlings on a cave wall that they entered into a conscious state for whatever reason. We'll never know why they did it. We'll never know why, like, what was really, ticking in their head while they were doing all their survival stuff. And then somebody's like, hey, I just have this huge impulse to like go in the cave and make representational markings of what's going on here in the cave. We'll never know why. But fortunately they did, because it gives us a window. And I think really what we're getting to here is like, it gives us a direct connection to the other humans throughout time and space. And in order to create that connection through like a real connection, because we can empathetically feel that connection, like it completes our humanity through time and space as a tribe, as a non-linear tribe throughout time and space. And we can feel the humanity in it. because they entered into that mental state where they intended for it to go on. And they hadn't, dude, there's no way they could have known how it was going to go. There's just no way. So, but isn't that like what we are? How do we know? We don't know. So to enter into that conscious imaginative state, it's a state of unknowing, but it's a state of trust. It's a state of communication. It's arguably one of the most human states we can be in because everything comes together there. So art is a thread through time for our nonlinear human tribe. And it cuts across everything. If it can cut across time and space, it can cut across everything. And it does. It does. And in that way, it enriches us in a way that no other thing possibly can. Nothing provides the fulfillment, the connection, and the enrichment that art does. And it's fundamental to the human experience. It's fundamental to human expression. It's fundamental to human reception. And we need it. We need it for coherency as we travel through time. We need it through coherency as we navigate daily issues. We need it for connection to other human beings, to level us out, to share with each other, to make us whole. And in that way, we can see how petty modern day critiques of art are. And we can see how attempting to nitpick art is really, it's like taking dogs to the dog show. Like, you love your dog. Don't worry about what the judge says at the dog show. Like, dogs are important. Like, art is important because it's not an aesthetic. It's not an optional part of the human experience. It's not some extra part that just got thrown in there. It's a real language. It's very human, and it keeps us free. It keeps us sane. It keeps us truthful. It keeps us honest. It does so many things. Art does so many things for the experience of life, and it's so valuable because it preserves our true expressions and our true nature throughout time and space. Art, what a great language. It's great to be human. Well, thanks for spending some time here at Philosopher's Corner. I hope you found this helpful, and I hope you have a great day.